Hello and welcome to a special edition of Talkin' Tunes. I am your host, Frank Walsh. Thanks for tuning in today. Now, ladies and gentlemen, my guest today is someone whom I'm sure anybody who watches this show knows very well. He is an international star who travels all over the world playing at some of the best venues and best festivals. He has recorded a couple of CDs and we're going to be talking about his new one today. He is fresh off a trip from the Edmonton Blues Festival. He is a 3 consecutive year in a row nominee for the Pine Top Perkins Award, which is one of the highest awards you can receive for his trade. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you my friend and great musician, Mr. Anthony Geraci. Anthony, how are you?
I'm doing great, man.
I tell you, you're a busy boy.
I spent 4 or 5 days up in Edmonton, Canada, playing at the festival there, which is a great festival. For all you festival seekers out there, put that one on your bucket list because it's a great one in a beautiful community out there.
Well, I tell you that if you listed all the festivals that you play, you would you'd run out of time.
Yeah, we need another show.
And I understand that you met one of your idols up there too. You met Booker T. Jones.
Booker T. And he had what they called the Stax Review with him, and it was great. He played all the hits from Booker T. and the MGs, as well as songs that he is known for with other artists. Such as Sitting on the Dock of the Bay,
yep,
and songs like that he was part of, doing it as part of being at Stax Records.
Cool. Now, as I mentioned, you play all over the place. You travel all over the world. I mean, you're in Poland. You're going to be in Switzerland. You've traveled everywhere. Yeah. And I also mentioned that you are going to be releasing a new CD that's going to be coming out. Where do you get the time to do that? Do you ever sleep?
Well, sleeping's overrated.
Do you ever unpack your suitcase?
You know what? It's really funny that you say that. I keep one suitcase that has a few staples in it.
Yeah.
And so I pull it out of the attic, wherever I keep it, and it's kind of ready to go. And I figure out how many days I'm going to be away, figure out how many pairs of socks I need, and what I'm going to be wearing, a couple of suits or whatever, and head on down the highway again.
Cool. Now let's talk about this new CD of yours.
Sure.
I mean, we were very blessed a couple of years ago to have you on here when you did your most recent CD previous to this, and talk a little bit about that. I mean, it's quite a shift from your last CD, and talk about that.
Sure. Well, the previous CD was called 50 Shades of Blue,
yeah, and
actually we did a show here about that CD, and I appreciate that. We did. So that album and CD went on to be nominated for Album of the Year, Traditional Album of the Year, and Song of the Year for the title track.
And it deserved every one of those awards.
Well, thank you.
It's worn out in my CD player.
Yeah, it starts skipping.
Oh, a little bit.
Yeah, and my new CD is called Why Did You Have to Go, and it's on Shining Stone Records, which is partly owned by Duke Robillard.
Cool. Now, talk a little bit about the difference between that CD and your previous one, and some of the musicians who are on there, and the type of music and style, etc.
Sure. Well, I think it's a continuation
okay,
of the last CD. On 50 Shades of Blue, I wrote all the songs, and once again, I wrote all the songs on this recording. So when I'm writing the songs, I kind of have an idea of who I'd like to sing them. My friends that I know would hopefully say yes to being on the recording. So the first song, the title track, Why Did You Have to Go, I had my good friend Sugar Ray Narcia in mind. And of course he said yes. I was very blessed that everybody that I called, no one said no. They said, sure, when you want me in the studio. And,
certainly a testament to you.
And they all were there. I did half the CD on the West Coast, and I did half the CD back here in the Boston area.
Cool. Now, as far as that goes, when you're writing your songs and developing your songs, I know you had mentioned that you have someone in mind, but where do you draw, your inspirations from? And when you're putting those songs together, do the melody come first, do the lyrics? Sure. And as you're developing that, how do you say, well, gee, this one needs a violin, this one needs a keyboard, this one needs a piccolo? How does that thought process work?
Piccolo's big in the blues these days.
I think so.
Yeah. We're going to have a hit with that. It varies. Sometimes I write songs where I have a chord progression in mind or a
Okay.
key in mind. And sometimes I just have my lyrics. 2 songs on the new recording. One's called Baptized in the River Yazoo. I wrote down in Clarksdale, Mississippi. There's something down there that to me really gives me a sense of fulfillment about blues. So I wrote that one. It's written down in Clarksdale, Mississippi. And there's another song, the title track, Why Did You Have to Go, was written also down in Clarksdale, Mississippi. I wrote that one after coming back from Sonny Boy Williamson's grave. Had a tour of Tutwiler, Mississippi, where Sonny Boy's grave is. And what the tour guide said a phrase that really stuck in my mind. He said, in the old days, the men would work from can to can't. And I said, well, what the heck does that mean?
Right.
He goes, well, they would work till they can see, till they can, till they can't see. So I incorporated that lyric, working from can to can't, in that song. And I heard that at Sonny Boy Williamson's grave.
Now, putting that melody together as far as playing that in your head, adding the instruments, pulling those is. Do you have, how do you say, okay, fine, this one needs a violin, or this one needs, is going to be guitar forward?
Right. Well, I try to keep it traditional within the blues framework, so to speak. So obviously piano or Hammond organ that I would play on, and then it's really pretty traditional. 1 or 2 guitars. A couple of the songs have Sugar Ray playing harmonica on it. I have Doug Wolverton and Sax Gordon playing sax and trumpet on a few tunes, but pretty much a traditional setup for what you would consider a blues band. Nothing out of the ordinary. I'd love to have a violin at some point. I love when I was going to music school, I did orchestration. So actually, I'm still working on a suite dedicated to Muddy Waters.
Nice.
That it's going to be full orchestra for.
Right. Now you would drop quite a few names of places you've been and people whom you've met and inspirations. Is there anybody that you wish you could have played with or could play with probably some of the few who you haven't? Right.
Well, people that have left us already, I wish I had gotten to meet and play with Otis Spann, the great blues piano player. As far as contemporary people that are playing the blues and music that I really like to listen to, even though he's probably the hugest person on the planet, I'd love to play with Eric Clapton someday.
Okay.
And I'm not kidding either. Because he does some great, when he wants to play blues, he can really play blues, and that's something I'd like to sit down and play with him.
Now, is he back in the scene? I know that he was out of it for a while.
I just saw that he was touring again. Yeah, he just played with Jimmy Vaughn in somewhere crazy in the middle of the country.
I saw that, but I wasn't sure if it was an older one or a new one. But I did see that.
That was only a couple of weeks ago.
Because what did he have? A problem with his hands, arthritis, or his hearing? No, it was hearing.
Is that right?
I think it was his hearing.
That I don't really know.
I believe it was his hearing, and that he couldn't hear himself play.
Yeah.
And,
well, he played pretty loud there when he was in Cream, and they had 8 marshals behind him, so that'll probably do a little damage after a while.
Yeah. Now, you've got some big shows coming up. You'd mentioned that you're going to be over in Switzerland. Is it Switzerland?
Yeah, in November. I'm going to be taking my band over to the Lucerne Blues Festival.
Yeah.
And I'll be bringing Michelle Evilgal Wilson, Brian Templeton, Per Hansen, Troy Gagne, and Greg Piccolo.
Cool.
And myself.
Greg Piccolo. Yeah. Wow. Great great jazz guy.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Great jazz guy. Is he local? Is he still in Rhode Island?
He lives in down near Westerly, Rhode Island.
Yeah, he's down in Rhode Island. I remember Greg from way back with him and Greg Abadi and all those guys down there.
He's playing a lot. He's played a lot of notes over the years.
Yeah, I bet. He's a great guy. Now, as far as all of your music, etc., you are always on the go. You seem always to be on the go. What do you do when you're not playing music? How do you relax? How do you turn that music head off? And what do you do when you're not playing?
Okay. Well, I'm a lot more of a homebody than people think. Because they see that I'm playing here, there, and everywhere. I love my garden. I'm in my garden every day. I'm cooking out of my garden when it's in season. Put up some tomatoes last week. And
well, I heard you're a pretty darn good cook.
Jelly tomorrow.
You're a pretty darn good cook, right?
I love cooking.
Yeah.
I'd love someday to have a small little restaurant with a piano in it. I'll just cook for people. No menu. I'll just cook. You come, whatever it's going to be there will be there, and I'll play some piano for you.
Geraci's Hot House, right?
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Cool. Just like, is Sugar Ray still doing that? I know Sugar Ray ventured off a little bit to do some
he bought
food.
a food truck and is doing that during the summer.
Cool.
Yeah.
What's your best dish? What do you make favorites? If you're going to have company over there, what do you put your signature on?
I'm not trying to be humble. I'm a pretty good cook, so it varies. I like fresh ingredients out of the garden, so anything you add to that, it's going to be great.
So with a vowel at the end of your name, is Italian one of your specialties?
Absolutely, that's basically all I cook.
Yeah.
Yeah, I venture out every once in a while.
He's being too modest.
I made some tomatillo salsa yesterday from my tomatillos in the garden.
Now you still some of that. You have your own brand out there too, don't you?
I have a couple of different hot sauces out. I'm going to be doing another one that'll be named after one of the songs on the new album. What I like to do is when I have records out, or I like to take one of the songs that I think has a catchy title and make a hot sauce dedicated to this. So there's a song on the new recording called Too Many Bad Decisions. So I'm going to make a hot sauce out of using that name.
I hope you have a mild version.
It's probably going to be hot if I know me.
Yeah, I don't mind it, but I have a little lady at home who says, that's too spicy for me. Yeah. But cool. So what's down the line for you? I mean, you are so busy and you have so many things on your plate. Do you have any long-range visions beyond your Switzerland, or does everything just kind of roll into something else, or do you have longer-range goals that you have set for yourself?
Well, I think just like in anything in life, you have to have like short and long-term goals. Right. So for the fall, when my CD comes out, actually you can pre-order it now on CD Baby, but technically the release date is September 21st. Mm-hmm. So during the fall, I have gigs coming up at Chan's in Woonsocket, 9 Wallace Street, the Bull Run Restaurant, Nelson's Candies up in New Hampshire. So all rooms that are, to me, that are important locally, that are real music rooms, not just a regular, maybe like Irish bar. Nothing wrong with an Irish bar now and then, but rooms that really cater to the people who really want to hear music, and that's kind of what my direction is. I don't need to play 5-6 nights a week locally. I would prefer just doing as I say, the gigs that I know people are there to really hear the musicians that are there, whether it be myself and my band or other bands, that it's a good music venue. As you just mentioned, I'll be at the Lucerne Blues Festival in November, and I have a brand new booking agent that's just going to be booking me in Europe next year, Pat Morgan at Blue Mountain Artists.
Nice. Well, one of the questions I was going to ask you a little earlier just reminded me of it. When you get invited to all these places and the big shows, the small shows, do you find them, or does your agent find them, or are there times where they find you?
Well, it's a little bit of both.
Okay.
Sometimes you got to harass people a little bit, a couple of emails and maybe a phone call before they get back to you. And sometimes people really dig what you're doing, and they'll figure out how to get a hold of you, either through messages on Facebook, or they know how to get a hold of me through my website.
Cool.
So it's a little bit of both. Okay. I mean, agents are out there. Their job is to get you gigs. Yep. And if you're lucky enough to have an agent. But all the local gigs that I have, I booked myself. I actually booked the Lucerne Blues Festival myself also.
Nice. Now you're talking about big festivals. I mean, I've seen you in your pictures and following you that you've played in front of thousands and thousands of people, and that you play in some smaller, intimate venues where there might be 100 people or 150 people. Do you have any preference, or does your style change when you play in a 10,000 seat stadium versus a small little corner store where you get a nice intimate crowd?
Well, the only time it really changes is if I go from like a electric piano to an acoustic piano.
Okay.
Like a lot of the clubs when I'm in Europe we're playing, they have acoustic pianos. They still have them. Hardly any clubs here in the United States have acoustic pianos anymore. So that makes me play different. It makes me feel more like a piano player. I mean, the electric piano player is piano these days are actually pretty good, but it's not like sitting behind something that's got wood and ivory and things like that, you know.
Because I've seen you. I mean, I've seen you in almost in some festivals where it was almost religious. It's like, is that the same guy? You know, you were animated and jumping, and the passion that you were playing in was like, wow. And then I've seen you in more intimate places where you're just kind of laid back and playing. And I think what you had said about being that piano player really comes across versus the blues piano player. And I've seen a discernible difference between the two.
Well, number one, I just love to play. I love to play anywhere with anyone. Like just this past weekend, and when I was at the Edmonton Blues Festival, I actually opened up the show doing solo piano. Then I did a show at what they called Piano-Rama. It was myself and two other piano players, and that was really cool. It was a little something different than I've done in the past, but that went over really good. But at night in the hotel where we stayed at, there was a jam session for all the musicians, and they had like a backup band. I believe they were from out west in Canada. They were like really good and very accommodating. Whoever wanted to play anything, they played. But they had an acoustic piano on stage.
Okay.
And they got loud, so I know I was getting buried a lot of the times. But it still felt good playing an acoustic piano. You know, bang. I like banging on things and stuff. You know.
Well, I saw you up at the Boogie and Blues Festival up in New Hampshire. I mean, you were there at 8 o'clock in the morning playing for the breakfast crowd.
That was fun.
And that was
the
cool.
Benton brothers.
That was
great.
cool.
Yeah,
that was cool.
Well, that came about last year because I was playing last year with the guys who were the Manish Boys, Sugar Ray Rayford, Kid Ramos, and those guys, and they had just gotten that nice old upright piano, but it's painted beautifully. So being the ham I am, of course, I'm waiting for breakfast.
No, you were ham? No.
Yeah, a little bit.
No.
A little bit. So I just started playing a couple of songs till my table was ready, and people dug it. I was having fun. Got a free cup of coffee, I think. And so I approached the Bennett brothers about. I said, "How'd you like me to come and play Saturday and Sunday for a couple of hours?" And they thought the idea was great. And from doing that. The Cashbox Kings needed a piano player, so I played with them.
I remember
the guys
that,
are great from Chicago. And I played with Taz Crew. He needed a piano player and organ player, so I was there for him, and it was great. I love being, asked by musicians that, I consider, really, really on top of their game and stuff, to play with.
It was
them.
interesting because, I went to church the other day, and I was happening to walk around, and they had this big picture of the Last Supper up there, and I looked very closely, and I think that you were playing background music at the Last Supper.
Yeah,
it's one of the few things you
my
haven't
agent
done.
Booked that for me,
Now, one of the things I just talked about when you like banging on things, I remember seeing you 2 years ago at the Situate Heritage Days Festival, and I went up and talked to you right after the end of the show, and your fingers and knuckles were bleeding.
Yes,
really, they
were
bleeding. Is that a common occurrence for you?
Not really. What happens is sometimes, if I'm just practicing at home, I have a nice Steinway grand piano at home. I play, but I'm not really banging. And so if I'm off for a couple of weeks, without any gigs, sometimes it takes a while for my fingers actually to get back into gig mode, so to speak. Where I do play harder than if I'm at home, just either writing songs or trying to play a Chopin etude or something like that.
Cool. Well, speaking of getting your hands into shape, folks, Anthony is going to get up in a second and play a couple of little ditties for you. So I suggest that you sit back and relax and enjoy Mr. Anthony Geraci.
All righty.
Wow, Anthony.
Little blues.
Darn good there
Little
on the
blues
keys
for
there.
you and your audience.
Darn good there on the keys. So as I always say, one of the disadvantages of the show is the clock.
Yeah.
So we only have a little bit of time left. So I think it's time to let the folks at home know how to get a hold of you, how to find your music, and where to go and see you on some of the things coming up.
Sure. Well, you can also go to my website, www.anthonygerasiblue.com, and it has contact information for there. It'll be how to you can figure out how to book me if you wish. I'll have my EU promoters on there and person booking me there. You can go to my Facebook page, which is Anthony Geraci Blue again. I guess I kind of like that theme. And those are probably the best two ways to get a hold of me.
And you're on Instagram as well.
I am on Instagram. My daughter does that, so I don't even know how to get on it.
Well, she does good. I think
it's Ant-Man Blue.
Ant-Man Blue. It is.
Ant-Man Blue.
It is. It is. Now, as far as some of the shows coming up, you rattled off of some of them, but any kudos, any shout outs, anybody you want to say hello to?
I'd just like to thank the people at my record company, Jesse and Duke Robillard, and the people that work for them. Jack Gauthier did a great job mixing the recording. Pat Morgan, who's going to be doing my booking in Europe. I appreciate what she's doing. And just, I'd like to tell everybody, to keep on supporting live music, because whether it be your local neighborhood band playing at your local neighborhood bar or going to, Boston Garden, it's all really the same. It's all connected. So just keep on going and see live music and support it.
Well, you took my thunder, because that's usually how I end my show.
Right?
I always tell people to go out there and support local music.
Yeah.
And folks, it's people like Anthony who you can go out and see. And you're not going to go broke doing it.
Right.
We're not talking like a Broadway play, or you're not going out and spending hundreds of dollars to get a ticket.
Right.
You are seeing some of the best talent and some of the best musicians around. And if you have not seen Anthony in person, you will be in for a treat, because he always surrounds himself with some of the best talent.
Right.
So Anthony, it has been a pleasure as always having you on here today. And we wouldn't be able to do it without our esteemed director, Roxanne Morris.
She's awesome.
In the booth, pushing the buttons and changing the backgrounds and making us look and sound pretty. And we had a little walk-in guest today, one of our good buddies in the studio. Mr. Terry Slagle is here.
That's right.
Providing some support. So always great to see Terry. So folks, thank you for tuning in today. As Anthony said, go out, support your local musicians. So for Roxanne Morris, everyone here at SMAC, I am Frank Walsh. Tune in and tune on.